Welcome to Loup TV. I'm Gene Munster along with Doug Clinton. Today is Thursday, January 6th. We've got three topics we're going to cover. First, we're going to talk a little bit about Facebook, aka Meta, and some of their efforts in the revolving door around operating systems and the metaverse. Second, a little bit on GameStop. They found their way directly into the toy department today. And then third, a little bit on some fun CES announcements. But we'll go back to the top. The thing that we caught our attention most today, it's actually been kind of developing over the last couple days, but is some story. I think it originally came from The Information, and that Facebook has dropped some of the development on their XROS. XROS is a mixed reality operating system in favor of the VROS, which of course is the virtual reality operating system. When you think about the metaverse and you think about this massive opportunity ahead, it catches one's attention at first. Are they having a difficult time finding their way into the metaverse? And I have an opinion. I'm going to hold my opinion and bring in Doug. Your reaction to this story and some of the response from Facebook.
I think anytime you see a story like this, and it's something we talk a lot about internally, is we ask, is it news or is it noise? And I think in this case, it feels like a really juicy headline that Facebook is, getting out of XR, MR, however we kind of want to brand it. But the reality is, I think it's noise. And we've seen this other mega cap tech companies that we followed as they experiment with these other big areas where they're investing in. I think about Apple with the car. There have been fits and starts there. There have been things, projects they've done that have been sidelined and taken offline. And nothing has changed the fact that Apple is interested in automotive. We know that. That's a fact. And I think if you think about Facebook in this case, Meta, they changed their name to Meta. Number one, we know they're interested in the metaverse. They want to build the next great interface for computing. And so when I see something like this, to me, it's just a symbol of, Facebook kind of going through some different things they're testing. Some things aren't going to work out, and I'm sure that those resources are going to be deployed elsewhere.
So they'll be deployed in the near term on the virtual reality piece. And as a reminder, Zuckerberg still believes in augmented reality. I guess mixed reality, I believe he still is there. The metaverse is going to be a combination of both 2D and virtual reality, mixed reality. And, they're so full throttled into this that I think that they're still going to be addressing that opportunity, even though we're hearing about things being canceled today. Would you agree with that? Or do you think that they're here anchoring in VR?
No, I think they kind of see it all together. The thing I think is different for Zuckerberg, and again, you can compare this to Apple. Tim Cook, I think, has made a very strong point multiple times throughout the past several years about how much he believes in AR. He's really made it a point to call out augmented reality. And I think that makes logical sense because the iPhone is a really great starting point for AR. You can experience lightweight AR things on your iPhone today, where Zuckerberg has always been very intent on VR. And he's talked about AR, but I think he has always said that to him, the bigger play is VR. So I don't think we should be surprised that VR is the focus, but I don't think it means that, the other XRs are excluded from how they're thinking about the world.
Sets up a dynamic as we think about these devices and Facebook wanting to build some space between themselves and Apple, no longer being dependent on Apple. I wonder, is being, with your anchoring in VR, is that going to be a limitation for it long term? It sounds like, still to be determined what they're going to do. They're not giving up on they're not giving up on mixed reality or augmented reality, but let's just take this to maybe 3 steps forward here and say that, let's say 80% of their efforts are based on virtual reality and 20% on mixed and augmented. Is that a problem for Facebook long term?
I think you could make a case either way. And part of it has to do with where does the world want to go? And then I think part of it has to do with what are the really powerful forces going to create. And to me, then it comes down to what do people want and what do they really enjoy using, the experiences they want, and then who's going to offer experiences that really delight people. We know Apple's great at building those kinds of devices. I'm sure that whatever they put out, whether it's AR, VR, MR, whatever we want to say, I'm sure it's going to be a fabulous experience. And I think Facebook too, since they've really taken over Oculus, since they acquired it and now put out a handful of headsets, I think they've gotten better at building devices. They're definitely not on Apple's level. But when you think about Facebook investing 10 billion a year, they're absolutely going to put out something that I think has substance and that people like. And, you know, it might just come down to, is augmented reality a better experience, or is it more germane to kind of the human condition than VR? And only time can tell on that perspective.
Makes sense. My next question is potentially going to start a long-term rift between you and I. Don't know the answer to this. At what point will you, or maybe never, refer to Facebook as Meta?
I was anti Alphabet too. I still call Google most of it. I don't know if I've ever said
You
Alphabet.
never called it Alphabet. I haven't either.
Yeah,
but
at Loup. So it just doesn't feel natural. And Meta, until they put out a headset that sells maybe a couple 100 million units, I'll probably keep calling it Facebook.
Couple 100 million. Yeah. I think we're going to be having some complicated conversations, because I am committed to referring to the company as Meta as soon as the stock, the ticker changes, which I think is sometime in Q1. Move on to our next topic, which is, this is in the toy department here, related to GameStop, getting into an NFT marketplace and crypto, and some crypto partnerships. I thought we were just recently talking about OpenSea is the NFT marketplace, and Coinbase is getting in there. The shares of GameStop, not surprisingly, are up like 15% on the news. What are they doing, and is it ultimately going to materialize to anything?
And actually, shares, I just looked at it 2 minutes ago. They're up 30%. Just to put that in context, that's $3 billion in market cap. And you're right, we did talk about OpenSea raising around at 13 billion. And so people are putting a lot of weight into this NFT project that GameStop is doing. I think it remains to be seen what it is. But
by the way, I don't think it's people putting weight into it. I think it's just GameStop culture.
I'll take it. Yeah, I'll step back. GameStop to me it's not even a stock. I mean, it's basically more
not
like a cryptocurrency. Yeah, than a stock, because it doesn't trade on, in my opinion, real fundamentals. It hasn't for a while. And I think most people who are trading GameStop know that. I don't know that many people are honestly believing that there's some true fundamental story there. I get that they have Ryan Cohen from Chewy, and he's a really exciting visionary leader, but to have a $3 billion boost in the stock price for an NFT marketplace that hasn't even launched yet, where OpenSea has 90+% market share, it's going to be hard to take anything from them. And on top of that, you have Coinbase, a company we love. I mean, we think of as potentially one of the next FANG names if you look down 10 years from now. And we own it in a couple of our funds. That's hard to compete when you're up against those two companies. So I totally understand the excitement, but they're in for a rough ride to really gain meaningful market share.
They've got a good brand, though, amongst kind of the, shockingly, it's kind of, because it's become a meme stock, I think it's developed a brand in itself that could be a segue. I agree with you, though. You're up against some big incumbents, both in OpenSea and in Coinbase, and I have no idea where this goes with the stock. Could be up 100% tomorrow. I wouldn't be surprised. And I wouldn't say that it's overvalued at that point, because there is no valuation question when it comes to GameStop.
One other thought there quick is, to your point, I think you're making a good point. These meme stocks are cult stocks, and GameStop is really the Bitcoin of meme stocks. It was the first one. And so I think it will always have that brand to it, for better or worse. And this cultish behavior, you see the same thing in crypto. Communities build around these ideas and sort of these ideals. I think behind GameStop, you have this sort of ideal of, stick it to the big hedge funds, The little guy can kind of get rich too and play the game, and so that will always be part of their story. And I've always felt with these meme stocks, particularly the big ones like GameStop and AMC, if they can find a way to really channel that into their business some way, that could be a really powerful thing on a fundamental story. But I don't know if I fully agree with the idea that the GameStop buyer is also an NFT buyer. I do think those communities are somewhat separate. I think the kind of meme stock speculator
Okay.
is somewhat
I was thinking
disconnected from the
they're
NFT
the
speculator right now.
same, kind of one and the same, but that's a fair
I think
point.
they're a little different. Yeah.
You know much
Yeah.
about the
We'll see
crypto
though.
partnerships that they announced?
For GameStop,
Yes.
I haven't heard any other crypto partnerships. I mean, other than I think this is something that they've been talking about too. By the way, there have been rumors about NFTs potentially being part of their, part of their future. I think it makes a ton of sense too, just from a gaming perspective, because I think NFTs are going to be a big part of the future of gaming. So I actually think it's the right move for them. I just think it's going to be really hard for them to compete with the other companies that we talked about in the space.
All right, we're going to round it out with a little bit of talk on CES, a quick one-liner here, kind of a fun new tech that I wasn't aware was out there. BMW came out with something called e-ink, which allows you to change the color of your car. I don't know how much change variation you can get through using electricity, kind of a fun idea. My guess is it's probably really expensive and won't really go anywhere. But I like the idea of being creative. And the one that really captured me here from CES, and CES has been a lot about EVs, but this one is that Chrysler, now remember there's Stellantis, which is the parent company, that's the old Chrysler Fiat. Chrysler brand is going to be around, it's going to be an all electric brand. They're going to be, all their vehicles are going to be electric by 2028. So that's, I guess, in 6 or 7 years, depending on how you're doing the calendar. What was my reaction to that was, this is why Tesla is going to win, is the concept that you're making this big announcement and you're 8 years away. I think shows something that is continues to be underappreciated about what Tesla and even the extent Rivian and Lucid are doing, which is starting from EV ground up. You don't have all this legacy momentum. And to put it in a perspective, one of the reasons why it takes 7 years to make that changeover is they've got great businesses around parts and supplies that they want to make money on. And separately is that they still need to support a lot of these vehicles that are on the road. And you can't just go and drop and walk away. Not to mention the difficulty in designing a fleet of cars, and the real challenge, which Musk would say, is building manufacturing around that. And so, to me, whether this came across as a positive announcement for Chrysler, I see more of it as an indictment to traditional auto and some of the challenges that they're going to have in the years to come. I love your take.
Yeah, well, I actually wanted to ask you a follow-up question on that, which is, in fairness to some of the traditional OEMs, it feels like Stellantis is so far behind. I mean, they're 6, 7 years probably behind at this point, where Tesla is. But if you look at, Ford, if you look at a GM, where, Ford, we talked about them, and we have our bet about the pickup trucks. But how do you think about the difference between where Ford is, which feels like much further down the line, versus Stellantis? You got to give them a little bit of credit, I think, right?
Yeah, give them a little bit of credit. I mean, I don't know how many vehicles Ford has in their lineup, but you probably need to look at the ones that have the most volume. The F-150 is an important one. It's the best-selling Ford. And the E-Mustang is another important
Mach-E,
one.
yeah.
So, yeah, thank you for the course correction there. I think that I think that they've made more progress, but we still haven't really seen volume shipments. We're still probably a couple years away from both of those in volume. And we're talking about Tesla in 2022 doing probably 1.4 million cars, 1.3 plus million. I mean, it's still way out of their range. And yes, they're doing better than Chrysler for sure. They should be applauded for that. But I think that really to get this right, it's going to take a long time. And I still think traditional auto is in a catch-22. On one side is they need to make these cars attractive, they need to sell at certain prices. And right now their manufacturing doesn't support scale to sell them at those prices, so they have to subsidize them. So you're in a period of subsidizing, you're losing money effectively. It could be years they could be losing money on these cars. It's not a good situation as you kind of vector over. That's one of the challenges. That's one of the reasons why they don't just flip the switch too, is that they would just get crushed when it comes to profitability. Not to mention they couldn't actually do it. So I think this is more messy for traditional auto. I agree with you that some of them have made more progress than others, but it's still comical to me that we're talking about, going all EV in 5-10 years in some of these announcements.
Yeah. I think I mostly agree with that latter point. I think to me, I was trying to figure like how far behind is Ford or how far ahead is Tesla? Because it really feels like Ford, if I had to single out one, and that was one that we were really excited about last year, it's one that in one of our products, the ETF that we were partnered with, we actually subbed it out for a different company, Magna, which we can talk about another time. But the thing with Ford is it feels like they're maybe 2 or 3 years behind. If I do the math, they've been talking about getting to kind of like 1 million battery production run rate. And I think they feel they have more demand than that by the middle of this decade. So call it, 24, 25. So, they're certainly behind Tesla. And I think the fundamental question with these traditional auto OEMs is, can they catch up? Because, Stellantis, they're never going to catch up. I think at this point, we could probably say that safely. They're too far behind, but I do think the question really is about, the Fords and the other side. Can Rivian get through production hell and come from behind in a different way? So Tesla's obviously the leader, but I think that's kind of the question that we'll see what happens in the next couple of years.
I think if I was going to pick two in the traditional side, I would pick Ford and Volkswagen. I think those are going to be great companies. I think they're going to do well. I think they will slowly get there. I think the broader traditional auto is still in a tough spot long term. So sounds like we're kind of on the same page. I think we are on the same page, and we don't need to always agree. That's one thing. Worked with you for 15 plus years, Doug. That's one thing I appreciate about you. We can disagree and move on. But I think we're going to agree that that's a wrap for today, and look forward to seeing everyone tomorrow. So on behalf of Doug, Gene, and Loup TV, bye for now.